The humid heat of Charleston weighed over the Palmetto Storage Company yard that August morning. Dozens of curious onlookers and dealers crowded under the scorching sun, waiting for Darren Holt, the official auctioneer, to begin the bidding on Unit 247B. Ezra Blackwood adjusted his worn cap and observed the crowd. At 42 years old, he knew this business better than anyone. 10 years of buying abandoned units had taught him to read the signs, the nervousness of newcomers, the calculated confidence of veterans, and most importantly, when a unit was worth the risk. "Folks, let's start with Unit 247B, shouted Darren, his words echoing through the concrete yard. "Property of Cornelius Whitmore, 3 months overdue. Remember the rules. Cash only, removal in 48 hours. Ezra approached the slightly open corrugated metal door. He could only see the first layers, some stacked cardboard boxes, furniture covered by dusty sheets and what appeared to be old equipment. Nothing that screamed treasure, but there was something about the careful organization of the items that caught his attention. "Let's start with $50, announced Darren. "50!" shouted Bradley Moss, a local dealer known for his aggressive bidding. "100!" counterattacked Vivian Cross, an elegant woman who collected antiques. Ezra remained silent, watching. The tension in the air was palpable. Everyone wanted a bargain, but few really understood the game. He noticed how Vivian carefully examined the visible furniture, probably calculating the potential value of the period pieces. "150, Bradley raised again. 200, said Ezra calmly, his voice cutting through the chatter. The crowd turned to him. Bradley frowned, clearly irritated. Vivian studied him with renewed interest. She knew Ezra rarely bid without good reason. "Anyone offering more than 200? Darren swept the crowd with his eyes. Seconds of silence stretched like hours. Bradley shook his head, giving up. Vivian hesitated, but finally backed down. "Sold to Ezra Blackwood for $200. The sound of the hammer echoed like a gunshot in Charleston's hot air. Ezra felt a familiar mixture of anxiety and excitement running through his veins. There was something in that unit. He could feel it. 2 hours later, with keys in hand and receipt in pocket, Ezra fully raised the door of Unit 247B. Sunlight revealed a meticulously organized space. Dark wooden shelves lined the walls, boxes catalogued with handwritten labels and antique furniture carefully protected. "Cornelius Whitmore," he murmured to himself, reading the name on one of the labels. "Who were you?" Ezra began his systematic inspection. "A Victorian desk in perfect condition, easily $500. Rare books carefully packaged, another $300. His experience told him he had already recovered his investment, but something deeper troubled him. That's when he noticed the dark wooden box at the back of the unit. Unlike the others, this one had no label. The wood was dark, almost black, with intricate carvings that suggested European origin. Ezra lifted it carefully. It was heavy, heavier than its size indicated. His hands trembled slightly when he found the small golden latch. Inside, wrapped in dark red velvet, was a pistol that clearly didn't belong to the 21st century. The metal was ornate with elaborate engravings, the handle inlaid with what appeared to be precious stones. But it was the mark on the barrel that made Ezra's heart stop. A German coat of arms and an engraved date, 1547. "My God," he whispered, his words lost in the stifling heat of the unit. Ezra knew enough about antiques to recognize something extraordinary when he saw it. This wasn't just an old weapon. It was a historical work of art. And if his suspicions were correct, he had just discovered something that could change his life forever. But as he held the pistol with trembling hands, Ezra couldn't imagine that he had also just become a target for people who would kill for much less. Ezra locked the storage unit with extra care that night, the wooden box secure in the trunk of his 2018 Honda Civic. During the entire drive home through Charleston's historic streets, his mind seethed with possibilities and concerns. His apartment in the Charleston Village neighborhood was modest but organized, walls covered with appraisal certificates, books on antiques, and photographs of his most valuable finds over the years. It was his sanctuary, where he transformed discoveries into knowledge and knowledge into profit. Ezra placed the box on his dining table and turned on all the lights. Under the clear illumination, the pistol was even more impressive. Every detail of the carving seemed to tell a story. Intertwined dragons, heraldic symbols, and inscriptions in Gothic German that he couldn't decipher. He grabbed his professional magnifying glass and began a meticulous inspection. The construction was clearly from the 16th century, but the preservation was extraordinary. Someone had cared for this piece with religious devotion for almost 500 years. "I need a specialist," he murmured, picking up the phone. Dr. Helena Richter provided consultations on European antiques in her office in Charleston's historic heart. Ezra had known her for 5 years. She was German-born with a PhD in medieval history and one of the few people in the region who could authenticate truly rare pieces. "Helena, it's Ezra. I need you to see something. Urgent." "Ezra, it's almost 10 at night." Her voice carried a slight German accent. "It's important. Very important. Can I come to your office now?" There was a pause. Helena had learned to trust Ezra's instincts over the years. When he said something was urgent, it usually was. "Give me 20 minutes, I'll meet you there." Ezra carefully wrapped the pistol back in its velvet and placed it in the wooden box. The drive to Helena's office took him through the cobblestone streets of the French Quarter, past historic mansions illuminated by gas lamps that had witnessed centuries of Charleston's history. Dr. Richter's office occupied the ground floor of a restored 18th-century building on Broad Street. When Ezra arrived, she was already there, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, wire-rimmed glasses reflecting the desk lamp's light. "Show me," she said simply. Ezra opened the box with ceremonial care. Helena's sharp intake of breath told him everything he needed to know. "Mein Gott," she whispered, switching to German in her shock. She put on white cotton gloves before even approaching the pistol. "Where did you find this?" "Storage unit auction. Belonged to someone named Cornelius Whitmore." Helena lifted the pistol with reverent care, her trained eyes scanning every detail. She examined the coat of arms with a magnifying glass, then turned to her computer and began typing rapidly. "Ezra," she said after several minutes, her voice barely controlled, "this is a Nuremberg wheel-lock pistol, 16th century, but not just any pistol." She paused, consulting her screen. "If I'm correct, this bears the mark of Klaus Zimmermann." "Who's Klaus Zimmermann?" "One of the greatest gunsmiths in history. He made weapons for Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. There are only 12 authenticated Zimmermann pieces known to exist worldwide." Helena's hands were trembling now. "And this could be the 13th. Ezra felt the room spinning slightly. "What are we talking about value-wise?" Helena was quiet for a long moment, running calculations in her head. "If authentication proves positive, we're looking at anywhere from $20 to $50 million. The silence that followed was deafening. Ezra stared at the pistol lying on Helena's examination table, trying to process the magnitude of what she'd just told him. "Helena, what do we do now?" "We need to be very, very careful," she said, already moving to lock her office door. "Pieces like this, they attract attention, the wrong kind of attention." As if summoned by her words, the sound of slow footsteps echoed in the cobblestone street outside. Helena turned off the desk lamp, and they both moved to the window. A black sedan was parked across the street, engine running. In the dim glow of the streetlights, they could make out the silhouette of someone sitting in the driver's seat. "How long has that car been there?" Ezra asked. "It wasn't there when you arrived," Helena replied, her voice tight with concern. They watched as the car's window rolled down slightly, and the unmistakable red glow of a cigarette appeared in the darkness. "Someone's watching us," Ezra whispered. Helena was already moving, carefully rewrapping the pistol. "We need to leave, separately." "And Ezra?" She grabbed his arm. "Don't go home tonight." Ezra spent the night in a budget motel on the outskirts of Charleston, the wooden box hidden under his mattress. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by every car door slam and footstep in the hallway. By dawn, his paranoia had crystallized into a plan. He needed answers about Cornelius Whitmore. The Charleston County Records Office opened at 8 a.m. Ezra was the first person through the doors, clutching a large coffee and wearing sunglasses despite the overcast morning. The clerk, a middle-aged woman named Patricia Hendricks, knew him from previous research projects. "Morning, Ezra. What are we hunting for today?" "Everything you can find on a Cornelius Whitmore. Would have been renting storage space, probably lived in Charleston or the surrounding area." Patricia's fingers flew across her keyboard. "Here we go. Cornelius Whitmore, age 73. Died 6 months ago. Natural causes. Heart attack. No immediate family." She paused, scanning the screen. "Interesting. He was a professor emeritus at the College of Charleston, Department of European History." Ezra's pulse quickened. "Any next of kin? Estate information?" "Everything went to the college except—" Patricia frowned. "There's a notation here about some personal effects that couldn't be located. The estate attorney filed a supplementary form indicating missing items of potential historical value. Do you have the attorney's name? Samuel Morrison. Office is downtown on Meeting Street. 40 minutes later, Ezra sat across from Samuel Morrison, a thin man in his 60s with penetrating grey eyes. Morrison's office was lined with legal texts and historical documents, suggesting he specialized in estate work involving collectibles and antiques. Mr. Blackwood, I have to ask, why are you interested in Professor Whitmore's estate? Ezra had prepared for this question. I bought his storage unit at auction. I'm trying to understand what I've acquired so I can properly honor his memory. Morrison studied him carefully. Professor Whitmore was eccentric, brilliant, but obsessed with 16th-century German history, particularly weapons and military artifacts. He spent 40 years collecting, but toward the end he became paranoid. Paranoid about what? He believed someone was trying to steal his collection. He moved his most valuable pieces out of his house about a year before he died. Claimed he was being watched. Morrison leaned forward. The truth is, Mr. Blackwood, Professor Whitmore owned some extraordinarily valuable items that certain collectors would go to great lengths to acquire. What kind of collectors? The kind who don't ask questions about provenance, who pay cash and don't care about legal ownership. Morrison's voice dropped. There's a black market for historical weapons, Mr. Blackwood. Very lucrative, very dangerous. Ezra felt a chill run down his spine. Did the professor ever mention specific pieces? Morrison was quiet for a long moment, then opened a file cabinet and withdrew a folder. This is confidential, but given the circumstances, he slid a photograph across the desk. It was the pistol. Exactly the same weapon Ezra had found, photographed in what appeared to be Professor Whitmore's study. He called it his Klaus Zimmermann, said it was worth more than his house. Morrison reclaimed the photograph. Mr. Blackwood, if you found what I think you found, you need to be very careful who you tell. It's too late for that, Ezra admitted. I've already had it examined. Morrison's face went pale. By whom? Dr. Helena Richter. Dr. Richter is reputable, but... Morrison stood and moved to his window, looking down at the street below. Mr. Blackwood, Professor Whitmore kept detailed records of everyone who inquired about his collection. People who called, visited, made offers. Some of these people were persistent. He returned to his desk and withdrew another file. 3 months before his death, Professor Whitmore filed a police report. Someone had broken into his house. Nothing was stolen, but his study had been thoroughly searched. Did the police investigate? They took the report, but there was no evidence of forced entry. The professor had given a key to a graduate student who was helping with research. Student named Marcus Chen. Ezra memorized the name. Where can I find Marcus Chen? That's the problem, Mr. Blackwood. Marcus Chen disappeared 2 weeks after the break-in, never finished his thesis, never contacted the university again. It's like he vanished. Outside Morrison's office, Ezra called Helena from a payphone, feeling like a character in a spy novel. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was hiding from people who wanted a piece of history, using technology from a bygone era. Helena, it's Ezra, we need to meet. Not at my office, she said immediately. And not at your place. Have you been followed? Ezra looked around the busy street. Cars, pedestrians, delivery trucks. Any one of them could be watching him. I don't know. Maybe. Waterfront Park, South End by the pier. 1 hour. The morning had grown overcast, with grey clouds rolling in from the Atlantic. Charleston's Waterfront Park was busy with tourists and joggers, providing perfect cover for a clandestine meeting. Ezra found Helena sitting on a bench overlooking Charleston Harbor, feeding breadcrumbs to aggressive seagulls. I've been doing research all night, she said without looking at him. Your Professor Whitmore was more than just a collector. He was obsessed with a specific historical mystery. What kind of mystery? In 1547, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V commissioned Klaus Zimmermann to create a set of 12 ceremonial pistols, gifts for allied princes and military commanders. 11 have been accounted for over the centuries. The 12th was lost during the sack of Rome. Helena turned to face him, her expression grave. Your pistol, Ezra, isn't just rare. According to Whitmore's research, it's the lost 12th Zimmermann, the one that disappeared 500 years ago. How did Whitmore get it? That's where it gets interesting and dangerous. Helena pulled out a manila folder. I accessed some academic databases last night. Professor Whitmore published papers suggesting that the 12th Zimmermann made its way to America during World War II, part of Nazi art looting operations. Ezra felt his blood run cold. You're saying this pistol was stolen by Nazis? Possibly, which means its current legal ownership is complicated. There are international laws about returning stolen cultural artifacts. But more importantly, Helena's voice dropped to a whisper. There are people who've been looking for this specific piece for decades. As if to emphasize her point, Helena's phone buzzed with a text message. She read it and immediately stood up. We need to leave. Now. What's wrong? Someone broke into my office last night. They took every file related to German historical weapons. She grabbed Ezra's arm. They know, Ezra. Someone knows exactly what you found. Across the harbor, a black sedan pulled up to the park entrance. Two men in dark suits got out and began walking purposefully toward the waterfront. Helena and Ezra were already running. The chase through Charleston's historic district was surreal. Ezra and Helena weaved between horse-drawn carriages and tour groups, their pursuers maintaining a careful distance but never losing sight. The narrow cobblestone streets that made Charleston charming became a maze of potential dead ends and hiding places. This way, Helena gasped, pulling Ezra into a narrow alley between two antebellum mansions. They pressed against a brick wall, catching their breath while listening for footsteps. The alley smelled of jasmine and centuries-old mortar, a reminder that they were hiding in a city where secrets had been kept for over 300 years. We can't keep running, Ezra whispered. We need help. Helena checked her phone. I have a contact, someone who specializes in complicated situations involving historical artifacts. What kind of contact? FBI Art Crime Team, Agent Rebecca Martinez. She handled a case for the college 2 years ago, stolen Civil War artifacts. 20 minutes later, they sat in a coffee shop on King Street, waiting. Agent Martinez arrived exactly on time, a woman in her 40s with intelligent dark eyes and the confident posture of someone accustomed to handling dangerous situations. Dr. Richter, Martinez said, sliding into their booth. You said this was urgent. Helena glanced around the crowded coffee shop, then leaned forward. Agent Martinez, we've discovered what we believe to be a historically significant weapon, 16th century, German, and we think people are trying to kill us for it. Martinez's expression didn't change, but Ezra noticed her hand move slightly toward her jacket. Show me. Ezra had brought photographs Helena had taken during her examination. Martinez studied them carefully, her face becoming increasingly serious. Where's the actual piece now? Safe location, Ezra said carefully. Martinez nodded approvingly. Good, because if this is authentic, you've stumbled into something much bigger than a simple theft. She pulled out her own phone and showed them a photograph, the same black sedan that had been following them. This car has been spotted near 3 different art thefts in the past 6 months. Atlanta, Savannah, and Charlotte, all involving high-value historical items. Martinez put her phone away. The people driving it work for a man named Viktor Kozlov. Russian? Helena asked. Former Soviet military. Now he runs a black market network specializing in stolen cultural artifacts. His clients are wealthy collectors who don't ask questions about provenance. Ezra felt the weight of the situation settling on him. So what do we do? First, we authenticate the piece properly. I have contacts at the Smithsonian who can verify its historical significance. Second, we set a trap. A trap? Martinez smiled grimly. Kozlov's people are good, but they're not patient. They'll make a move soon. When they do, we'll be ready. That evening, Ezra returned to his apartment for the first time in 2 days. Agent Martinez had assured him it was safe. Her team had swept the building and placed it under surveillance. Still, walking up the familiar stairs felt like entering enemy territory. His apartment had been searched. Professionally, carefully, but searched nonetheless. Books were slightly out of place, drawers not quite closed completely. Someone had been very interested in his research materials. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Blackwood? The voice carried a slight Eastern European accent. Who is this? Someone who appreciates historical artifacts. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Ezra's hand tightened on the phone. I don't know what you're talking about. The Zimmerman pistol, Mr. Blackwood. I've been searching for it for a very long time. I'm prepared to make you a generous offer. It's not for sale. A pause. Everything is for sale, Mr. Blackwood. The question is whether we negotiate or whether I simply take it. The line went dead. Within minutes, Agent Martinez was at his door with 2 other FBI agents. That was Kozlov, she said after listening to Ezra's account. He's escalating faster than expected. What does that mean? It means we spring our trap tomorrow. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Ezra would return to Helena's office with a decoy pistol, a convincing replica that Martinez's team had prepared overnight. Meanwhile, Helena would loudly discuss their discovery on several phone calls that Martinez was confident were being monitored. The real Zimmermann pistol remained in FBI custody, being examined by Smithsonian experts who had flown in that morning. "The authentication is incredible," Martinez told them as they prepared for the operation. "Your pistol isn't just authentic, it's more historically significant than Professor Whitmore realized." "How so?" "The Smithsonian experts found hidden engravings inside the mechanism. Inscriptions that suggest this pistol was present at the signing of the Peace of Augsburg in 1555. It's not just a weapon, it's a witness to one of the most important treaties in European history." Helena shook her head in amazement. 50 million might have been conservative. "Which is exactly why Kozlov won't let it go," Martinez added. "Be careful today. These people don't hesitate to use violence." As Ezra walked toward Helena's office that afternoon, carrying the decoy pistol in its original wooden box, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched from every window and doorway. Charleston's historic charm had been replaced by an atmosphere of menace and hidden danger. The black sedan was parked 2 blocks from Helena's office, right where Martinez had predicted it would be. "Showtime," Ezra murmured to himself, and walked straight toward what he hoped wouldn't be his final appointment with destiny. Helena's office had been transformed into a surveillance center. Hidden cameras captured every angle, and FBI agents occupied the buildings across the street. Agent Martinez monitored everything from a van parked 3 blocks away. "Remember," Martinez's voice crackled through Ezra's nearly invisible earpiece, "act natural. Examine the decoy, discuss authentication, make it look like the real thing is right there in the room." Ezra nodded to Helena, who was playing her part perfectly. She had the decoy pistol on her examination table, magnifying glass in hand, speaking loudly enough for any listening devices to pick up her words. "The craftsmanship is extraordinary," she said, her voice carrying the excitement of a true discovery. "This level of preservation. Ezra, we're looking at the find of the century." Through the window, Ezra could see the black sedan. 2 figures sat inside, waiting. A third man stood casually at the corner, pretending to read a newspaper, but clearly watching the building. "They're positioning," Martinez's voice whispered in his ear. "Stay alert." Helena continued her performance, photographing the decoy from multiple angles. "I'll need to document everything before we contact the auction houses. Sotheby's will want complete provenance records." That was the trigger phrase. Within minutes, Ezra saw the man with the newspaper speak into a phone. The sedan's engine started. "Here they come," Martinez warned. "Remember, don't resist. Let them take the decoy. We'll track them to Kozlov." The office door opened without a knock. 2 men entered. One tall and thin with pale eyes, the other shorter but powerfully built. Both wore expensive suits that couldn't quite hide the bulges of concealed weapons. "Dr. Richter, Mr. Blackwood." The tall man spoke with the same Eastern European accent Ezra had heard on the phone. "We're here for the pistol." Helena stood up slowly, her hands visible. "I don't know what you mean. Please don't insult our intelligence. The Zimmermann pistol, Professor Whitmore's collection. We know you have it." Ezra stepped forward, heart pounding but trying to appear calm. "Look, we can discuss this. What exactly are you offering?" The shorter man smiled without humor. "We're not offering anything. We're taking what belongs to our employer." "It doesn't belong to your employer," Helena said firmly. "It belongs in a museum. Everything belongs to someone, Doctor. The question is, who has the power to keep it?" The tall man moved toward the examination table. Ezra noticed his partner's hand drift toward his jacket, clearly reaching for a weapon. "Wait," Ezra said quickly. "Let's talk about this reasonably. How much is Kozlov offering?" Both men froze. They hadn't mentioned their employer's name. "You know more than you've been letting on," the tall man said, his voice turning dangerous. That's when Agent Martinez's voice crackled through hidden speakers. "FBI, building is surrounded. Drop your weapons." The shorter man pulled a pistol and spun toward the door. His partner lunged for the wooden box containing the decoy. What happened next occurred in seconds that felt like hours. The office door exploded inward as FBI agents in tactical gear poured in. The shorter man fired once before being tackled. His partner grabbed the wooden box and dove through the window, glass shattering around him. Ezra threw himself over Helena, protecting her from the falling glass. When he looked up, the tall man was sprinting across the cobblestone street, clutching their carefully prepared decoy. "Let him go," Martinez's voice commanded through the speakers. "We have what we need." The shorter man was in handcuffs within minutes, blood running from a cut on his forehead. Martinez entered the office, surveying the damage with professional calm. Clean operation, she told Ezra and Helena. Dmitry Petrov, she indicated the captured man, has been wanted in connection with art thefts across 3 countries. What about his partner, and Kozlov? Martinez smiled grimly. That's where our real plan begins. The decoy pistol has a GPS tracker hidden in the wooden box. We're going to follow it straight to Kozlov's operation. Through the shattered window, they could see the black sedan racing away through Charleston's narrow streets. But on Martinez's tablet, a red dot moved steadily across a digital map, leading them toward what they hoped would be the end of Viktor Kozlov's art theft network. The question, Martinez said, is what Kozlov will do when he discovers he's been tricked. As if answering her concern, Ezra's phone rang. Unknown number again. Answer it, Martinez instructed, and put it on speaker. Mr. Blackwood. Kozlov's voice filled the room cold with fury. That was very foolish. I don't know what you mean. The decoy pistol, Mr. Blackwood. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? Ezra's blood ran cold. Martinez gestured for him to keep talking. I still don't. Where is the real Zimmerman pistol? Safe. Somewhere you'll never find it. Kozlov's laugh was devoid of humor. We shall see, Mr. Blackwood. We shall see. Charleston is not such a large city, and everyone has pressure points. The line went dead, leaving them in ominous silence. He's not running, Martinez realized. He's escalating. This isn't over. It's just beginning. Outside, storm clouds gathered over Charleston Harbor, and the first drops of rain began to fall on the city's historic streets. The hunt for the Zimmerman pistol had become something much more dangerous, a war between law enforcement and international criminals, with Ezra Blackwood caught in the middle. The GPS tracker showed Kozlov's team heading toward the old industrial district near the port. Martinez was already calling for backup. Time to finish this, she said, checking her weapon. One way or another. The abandoned warehouse district near Charleston's port felt like a different world from the city's historic charm. Industrial buildings from the early 1900s stood like concrete monuments to a forgotten era, their broken windows staring blindly at the harbor beyond. Agent Martinez's tactical team surrounded Warehouse 47, where the GPS tracker had finally stopped moving. But as they watched through night vision scopes, it became clear that Kozlov had prepared for exactly this scenario. Multiple vehicles, reported Agent Chen through the radio. At least 8 armed personnel visible. They're not planning to surrender. Ezra crouched beside Martinez's command vehicle, feeling utterly out of place among the federal agents preparing for what looked like a military operation. Helena sat beside him, her face pale but determined. This is because of us, she said quietly. All these people in danger, because we found a pistol in a storage unit. No, Martinez corrected, overhearing. This is because Viktor Kozlov has been stealing cultural artifacts for years. You just gave us the opportunity to stop him. Martinez's phone buzzed. Text message. She read it, and her expression darkened. Kozlov wants to negotiate. He's offering to trade the location of 12 other stolen historical pieces for safe passage out of the country. What kind of pieces? According to this, artifacts stolen from museums in Prague, Berlin, and Vienna, including a Stradivarius violin worth $8 million. Ezra realized the scope of what they'd uncovered. He's not just a thief. He's been systematically looting European cultural heritage. For years, Martinez confirmed, using American collectors as his market. Her radio crackled. Agent Martinez, we have movement. 2 figures approaching under a white flag. Through binoculars, Ezra could see them. The tall man who had escaped through Helena's window, and beside him an older man in an expensive coat who could only be Viktor Kozlov himself. They want to talk, Martinez observed, but this feels like a distraction. Her instincts proved correct. Agent Chen's voice exploded through the radio. Multiple boats approaching from the harbor side. They're trying to extract by water, Martinez cursed in Spanish. He's splitting our attention. Classic misdirection. She grabbed her radio. All units, priority on harbor approach. Do not let those boats reach the warehouse. What followed was chaos that Ezra would remember for the rest of his life. Spotlights illuminated the harbor as FBI agents in speedboats intercepted Kozlov's escape vessels. Automatic weapons fire echoed across the water, mixing with the sound of helicopter rotors as air support arrived. But in the warehouse district, Kozlov and his lieutenant had disappeared. They're in the building, Martinez realized. This whole negotiation was to buy time while they destroyed evidence. The tactical team moved in, but they found the warehouse empty except for the wooden box containing their decoy pistol, smashed against a concrete wall. Computer hard drives had been destroyed, and any documentation of Kozlov's network was gone. "They got away," Agent Chen reported grimly. But Martinez was studying her tablet with growing excitement. "Maybe not entirely." She showed Ezra and Helena the screen. "Before they destroyed everything, our surveillance picked up Kozlov making multiple phone calls. Our tech team intercepted fragments. Enough to track him? Better, enough to identify his American buyers, including someone very close to your Professor Whitmore." The revelation came at dawn, as Charleston's historic district awakened to news reports of the harbor gun battle. Martinez had spent the night analyzing intercepted communications, and what she discovered changed everything they thought they knew about Professor Whitmore's death. "Marcus Chen," she announced, showing them surveillance photos. "The graduate student who had access to Professor Whitmore's house. He didn't disappear, he went underground." The photos showed a young Asian-American man in his late 20s, but more importantly, they showed him meeting with Victor Kozlov in a restaurant 3 months before Professor Whitmore's death. Chen was the inside source, Helena realized. He told Kozlov about the professor's collection. "More than that," Martinez continued, "medical examiners' records show Professor Whitmore had high levels of digitalis in his system when he died. Digitalis causes heart attacks, but it's also found in common garden plants." Ezra felt sick. "You're saying Whitmore was murdered. I'm saying Marcus Chen had motive, means, and opportunity, and according to the intercepted calls, he's still in Charleston." The address led them to a restored carriage house in the Ansonborough neighborhood. Marcus Chen answered the door looking like he hadn't slept in days. When he saw Agent Martinez's badge, his shoulders sagged in defeat. "I wondered when you'd find me," he said quietly. Chen's confession, recorded in Martinez's field office, revealed the full scope of the conspiracy. He had been stealing information about Professor Whitmore's collection for months, photographing pieces and providing detailed assessments to Kozlov's network. "The professor started getting suspicious," Chen explained. "He moved his most valuable pieces to the storage unit, changed the locks on his house, but he still trusted me." "So you killed him," Martinez stated. Chen's hands shook as he signed his confession. "It wasn't supposed to happen that way. I just wanted him to have a heart episode, something that would hospitalize him long enough for Kozlov's people to search the storage unit, but his heart was weaker than I thought." "What about the Zimmerman pistol? Did Kozlov get what he wanted?" Chen looked up with something like satisfaction. "That's the irony. Professor Whitmore was too smart. He documented everything about his collection except that pistol. Even I didn't know exactly where he'd hidden it." Martinez turned to Ezra. "Which means your $200 storage unit purchase was pure luck. Or destiny," Helena added softly. The real Zimmerman pistol, after extensive authentication by Smithsonian experts, was valued at $63 million. But more importantly, it led to the recovery of artifacts worth over $200 million from Kozlov's network. Ezra donated the pistol to the Charleston Museum, where it became the centerpiece of an exhibition on European craftsmanship. The reward money from various insurance companies and international recovery efforts was enough to change his life, but he continued buying storage units. "Once a treasure hunter, always a treasure hunter," he told Helena 6 months later, as they examined his latest acquisition, a unit that contained nothing more valuable than vintage furniture and old photographs. But as Ezra had learned, sometimes the greatest treasures are hidden in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone with enough curiosity and courage to discover them. Victor Kozlov was eventually captured in Prague, extradited to the United States, and sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Marcus Chen received 15 years for his role in Professor Whitmore's death and the theft conspiracy. And in Charleston's historic district, tourists now flocked to see the Zimmerman pistol that almost disappeared forever, never knowing how close they came to losing a piece of history to greed and violence. The wooden box that started it all sits in Ezra's apartment, empty now but still beautiful in its dark craftsmanship. Sometimes late at night, he runs his fingers over the intricate carvings and wonders what other secrets are hidden in storage units across America, waiting for their moment of discovery. After all, you never know what treasures people abandon, or what dangers they might bring to those brave enough to find them. 3 months after Victor Kozlov's capture, Ezra thought the nightmare was over. The media attention had died down, the FBI had closed their investigation, and life in Charleston had returned to its normal rhythm of tourists, history tours, and storage unit auctions. But on a humid September morning, as Ezra examined his latest storage unit purchase, a modest $150 investment containing household items, he found something that made his blood run cold. Hidden beneath a pile of old blankets was a manila envelope marked E. Blackwood, urgent. Inside were photographs of him leaving his apartment, entering Helena's office and meeting with Agent Martinez. Someone had been watching him for weeks. Along with the photos was a handwritten note. The Zimmerman was just the beginning. Professor Whitmore had other secrets. Meet me at Magnolia Cemetery, Section 12, midnight. Come alone, or Helena Richter pays the price. A friend of Marcus Chen. Ezra's hands trembled as he read the note. Marcus Chen was in federal prison, but clearly his network extended beyond what the FBI had uncovered. That evening, Ezra sat in his apartment debating whether to call Agent Martinez, but the note's threat against Helena was explicit, and he couldn't risk her safety. At 11:45 p.m., he drove through Charleston's empty streets toward Magnolia Cemetery, one of the South's most historic graveyards. The cemetery at midnight was a maze of shadows and Spanish moss. Ancient oak trees draped their branches over weathered headstones dating back to the 1800s. Ezra found Section 12, a collection of elaborate Victorian monuments to Charleston's old merchant families. "Mr. Blackwood," the voice came from behind a massive marble angel. A woman stepped into the moonlight, Asian-American, early 30s, with intelligent eyes that reminded him uncomfortably of Marcus Chen. "You're related to Chen," Ezra said. It wasn't a question. His sister, Lisa Chen. She moved closer, and Ezra noticed she kept her hands visible, a gesture meant to show she wasn't armed. "Marcus destroyed our family's reputation, Mr. Blackwood, but he wasn't the only one Professor Whitmore trusted. What do you want?" "To finish what Marcus started, but legally this time." Lisa pulled out a thick folder. Professor Whitmore didn't just collect weapons. He was documenting the entire network of Nazi art theft during World War II. He had evidence that could recover hundreds of stolen pieces. Ezra examined the documents by phone flashlight. Maps, shipping records, insurance claims, all meticulously researched and documented. "This is incredible," he admitted. "But why bring this to me? Why not the FBI?" "Because the people involved aren't all dead, Mr. Blackwood. Some of them are still alive, still powerful, still dangerous." Lisa's voice dropped to a whisper. "Professor Whitmore was murdered because he was getting close to exposing a network that's been operating for 80 years. Victor Kozlov was small time compared to this. He was a middleman, Mr. Blackwood. The real power is in the people who buy stolen art and display it in private collections, never asking questions about provenance." Lisa showed him another document, a list of names and addresses. Ezra recognized some of them, prominent Charleston families, museum board members, even a federal judge. These people have been buying stolen European art for decades, laundering it through auction houses and private sales. Professor Whitmore had enough evidence to destroy them all. "And you think they killed him for it?" "I know they did. Marcus was just the weapon they used." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "My brother was stupid and greedy, but he wasn't a killer. Someone convinced him that a little digitalis would just make the professor sick. When Whitmore died, Marcus panicked and went to ground." Ezra studied the documents, his mind racing. "What do you want from me?" "Help me finish Professor Whitmore's work. You have credibility now, connections with law enforcement. Together we can expose this network and recover millions of dollars worth of stolen art." "And if I refuse?" Lisa's expression hardened. "Then innocent people will keep paying the price. Dr. Richter is brilliant, Mr. Blackwood, but she's also been asking questions about Professor Whitmore's other research, questions that have attracted the wrong kind of attention." As if to emphasize her point, Lisa's phone buzzed. She read the message and her face went pale. "We need to leave. Now." "What's wrong?" "Helena's apartment building. There's been a fire." They raced through Charleston's empty streets, arriving at Helena's building in Charleston Village to find fire trucks and police cars filling the narrow road. The building's second floor was gutted, smoke still rising from the blackened windows. Ezra pushed through the crowd, frantically searching for Helena. He found her sitting in an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket, her face streaked with soot, but otherwise unharmed. "Helena, thank God you're okay." "Ezra?" She looked up at him with dazed eyes. "I was working late in my office downtown. My neighbor called about the fire." She grabbed his arm. "But Ezra, they're saying it started in my apartment, and the fire chief found evidence of accelerant." Lisa Chen appeared beside them. "Dr. Richter, we need to talk." For the next hour, in the parking lot of an all-night diner, Lisa explained everything to Helena. The Nazi art theft network, Professor Whitmore's research, and the dangerous people who would kill to keep their secrets buried. So what do we do? Helena asked. We do what Professor Whitmore couldn't, Lisa replied. We take this evidence public, but carefully, and with protection. Ezra pulled out his phone. I'm calling Agent Martinez. No, Lisa said quickly. Not yet. Martinez is FBI, but this goes deeper than federal jurisdiction. We need someone with international connections. Who? Lisa smiled for the first time that night. Professor Whitmore had one more secret, Mr. Blackwood. He wasn't working alone. The meeting took place in a private room at Charleston's historic Francis Marion Hotel. Lisa Chen had arranged everything, but she wouldn't tell Ezra and Helena who they were meeting until the last moment. Professor Whitmore was part of an international task force, Lisa explained as they waited. Art historians, legal experts, and law enforcement officials working together to track down Nazi-looted artifacts. They'd been operating quietly for decades. The door opened, and 3 people entered. Agent Martinez, whom Ezra recognized immediately, a distinguished older man in an expensive suit, and a woman with short gray hair and keen blue eyes who carried herself with unmistakable authority. Mr. Blackwood, Dr. Richter, Agent Martinez said, I'd like you to meet Director Sarah Wellington from Interpol's Art Crime Division and Attorney General Edmund Harrison. Ezra felt his world tilt slightly. The Attorney General of the United States was sitting across from him in a Charleston hotel room. Professor Whitmore was one of our most valuable researchers, Director Wellington explained. His work on Nazi art theft was going to be the foundation for the largest art recovery operation in history. His murder set us back significantly, Attorney General Harrison added, but thanks to Mr. Blackwood's discovery of the Zimmerman pistol, and now Miss Chen's courage in bringing us Professor Whitmore's complete research, we can move forward. Lisa spread the documents across the conference table, maps showing shipping routes from 1940s Europe to America, insurance records for paintings that were never found. Most damning of all, financial records showing payments from prominent American collectors to European middlemen. This network has operated for 80 years, Wellington said. Stolen art worth billions of dollars, laundered through auction houses and private sales. The people involved aren't just collectors, they're judges, politicians, museum directors. People who can make investigations disappear, Harrison added grimly. Agent Martinez leaned forward. Which is why we've been working in secret, building cases carefully, gathering evidence without alerting the suspects. And now, Helena asked. Now we spring the trap, Wellington replied. Simultaneous raids in 12 cities, Charleston, Atlanta, New York, Los Angeles. We recover the stolen art and arrest everyone involved. What about our safety? Ezra asked. These people have already tried to kill Helena. You'll be in protective custody until the operation is complete, Harrison assured him. All 3 of you. 3? Lisa looked surprised. Martinez smiled. Miss Chen, your brother may have made terrible choices, but his information about Professor Whitmore's research has been invaluable. You're under federal protection as a key witness. The operation, codenamed Restoration, began at dawn on October 15th. Ezra watched from a federal safe house as news reports showed FBI agents removing paintings, sculptures, and historical artifacts from some of Charleston's most prestigious addresses. The stolen art recovery was staggering. A Van Gogh painting worth $30 million, taken from a private home on Meeting Street. Medieval manuscripts looted from Italian monasteries, found in a prominent lawyer's private library. The Stradivarius violin that Kozlov had mentioned, discovered in the music room of a federal judge's mansion. But the most significant find came from an unexpected source. We found Professor Whitmore's secret storage facility, Martinez called to inform them, hidden in a warehouse near the old Navy Yard. Lisa, your brother gave us the location before he went to prison. The warehouse contained Professor Whitmore's life's work, detailed documentation of over 300 stolen artifacts, complete with photographs, provenance research, and evidence of their current locations. It was a treasure map of Nazi-looted art scattered across America. Marcus felt guilty about the professor's death, Lisa explained to Ezra as they reviewed the documents. He gave the FBI the warehouse location as part of his plea agreement. It was his way of trying to make amends. Helena, reading over shipping manifests, made a startling discovery. Ezra, look at this. The Zimmerman pistol wasn't the only piece that came to America in 1947. There was an entire shipment. She showed him a manifest dated September 1947, Historical Weapons Collection consigned to C. Whitmore, Charleston, SC. Professor Whitmore's father, Lisa realized. He was involved in art recovery after the war, but some pieces never made it to the museums they were intended for. You mean there could be other pieces like the Zimmermann pistol? Ezra asked. Not just like it, Helena said excitedly. According to this manifest, there were 2 Zimmermann pistols in that shipment, the one you found, and its matching pair. Agent Martinez, listening to the conversation, picked up her phone immediately. We need to search every storage facility Professor Whitmore ever rented, and we need to do it today. The second Zimmermann pistol was found that afternoon in a climate-controlled storage facility across town from where Ezra had made his original discovery. Unlike the first pistol, this one came with complete documentation, certificates of authenticity, insurance appraisals, and a letter from Professor Whitmore explaining its historical significance. But more importantly, it came with a final message from the professor. If you are reading this, the letter began, then my research into Nazi art theft has likely gotten me killed. The people involved in this network are ruthless and have operated with impunity for decades, but they can be stopped. The letter contained names, addresses, and bank account numbers for the entire Charleston branch of the art theft network. It was Professor Whitmore's insurance policy, his way of ensuring that his murder would not go unpunished. Within a week, 17 people had been arrested in Charleston alone. The network's tentacles reached into the highest levels of society, but the evidence was overwhelming. Professor Whitmore had been meticulous in his documentation. Lisa Chen stood beside Professor Whitmore's grave as the media storm finally began to calm. Ezra and Helena had come to pay their respects and to thank the man whose obsession with justice had started their incredible journey. He would be proud, Lisa said quietly. We recovered over 400 stolen artifacts. Hundreds of millions of dollars worth of art is going back where it belongs. And Marcus? Ezra asked. His testimony helped convict 12 major collectors. The prosecutor is recommending a reduced sentence. Lisa's voice was sad but hopeful. He'll serve his time, but he'll have a chance to rebuild his life. Helena placed flowers on Professor Whitmore's headstone. Some obsessions are worth dying for, she said. Justice, truth, making sure history isn't lost to greed. As they walked back through Magnolia Cemetery, Ezra reflected on how much his life had changed. The storage unit that started everything seemed like a lifetime ago, though it had been less than a year. So what's next? Helena asked. Back to storage unit auctions? Ezra smiled. Actually, I've been thinking about a career change. Oh? Agent Martinez offered me a consulting position with the FBI art crime team. Seems they could use someone who knows how to find hidden treasures. Lisa laughed. From storage unit flipper to federal art recovery specialist, Professor Whitmore would definitely approve. As they drove back through Charleston's historic streets, Ezra couldn't help but think about all the secrets still hidden in storage units, attics, and basements across America. How many other priceless artifacts were waiting to be discovered? How many other mysteries needed solving? But for now, he was content, knowing that Professor Cornelius Whitmore's legacy lived on, and that justice had finally been served for a brilliant man who died trying to preserve history for future generations. The Zimmermann pistols were donated to the Smithsonian Institution, where they became the centerpiece of an exhibition on art recovery and the ongoing fight against cultural theft. And somewhere in Charleston, in storage units yet to be auctioned, other treasures wait for someone brave enough and curious enough to find them. Ezra adjusted his FBI credentials as he approached the storage facility in Savannah, Georgia. Agent Martinez walked beside him, both of them studying the file for Unit 156C, another abandoned storage space, another mystery waiting to be solved. Former owner was Dr. James Patterson, professor of archaeology at Savannah College, Martinez briefed him. Died 6 months ago. Estate couldn't locate several important pieces from his collection. Sounds familiar, Ezra replied with a smile. What are we looking for? Mayan artifacts, possibly looted from Guatemala in the 1970s. Patterson published papers suggesting he knew where several missing pieces ended up. They approached the unit as the local sheriff cut the lock. This had become Ezra's new normal, working with law enforcement to recover stolen cultural artifacts, using his expertise in recognizing hidden value to solve cases that had puzzled investigators for years. The unit door rolled up, revealing carefully organized shelves and boxes, but Ezra's attention was immediately drawn to a familiar-looking wooden crate in the corner. That craftsmanship, he murmured, examining the dark wood and intricate carvings. I've seen this before. Inside the crate, wrapped in protective cloth, were 3 jade figurines that took Ezra's breath away. Even to his untrained eye, they were clearly ancient, clearly valuable, and clearly not something a college professor should have in his personal collection. "Martinez," he called softly, "I think we found them." His phone rang as they photographed the artifacts. Helena's name appeared on the screen. "Ezra, you need to see the news. They found another storage unit in Baltimore. Contents traced back to Nazi looting operations." Ezra looked around the storage facility. Dozens of other units, each potentially containing their own secrets and mysteries. How many Professor Whitmores were out there? How many Marcus Chens? How many stolen pieces of history were waiting in climate-controlled units across America? "I'll be back in Charleston tomorrow," he told Helena. "We have work to do." As Agent Martinez called in the Mayan artifact discovery, Ezra walked through the storage facility's corridors, past dozens of locked doors. Behind each one was someone's abandoned life, someone's forgotten treasures, someone's secrets. But now he had the knowledge, the connections, and the authority to make sure that when those secrets were discovered, justice would be served, and history would be preserved. The hunt for hidden treasures continued, but now Ezra Blackwood was hunting for more than profit. He was hunting for truth, for justice, and for the priceless artifacts that belonged not to private collectors, but to all of humanity. In Charleston, the Zimmerman pistols drew thousands of visitors to their museum display. A small plaque told their story. Discovered in a storage unit by Ezra Blackwood, these pistols led to the recovery of over 400 stolen cultural artifacts and the exposure of an international art theft network operating for nearly 80 years. But Ezra knew the real story was more complex. It was about Professor Cornelius Whitmore's dedication to preserving history. It was about Marcus Chen's journey from greed to redemption. It was about ordinary people who chose to do extraordinary things when faced with difficult decisions. And it was about the truth that you never know what treasures or what responsibilities you'll discover when you're brave enough to open a door and look inside. The storage unit auctions continued every weekend across America. Bidders gathered, hoping to find valuable items in abandoned spaces. But now, thanks to Ezra's work with the FBI, there was always someone watching for the truly priceless pieces, the ones that belonged in museums, not private collections. Because sometimes the greatest treasure isn't what you can sell, but what you can save for future generations to discover and appreciate. And in storage units across the country, those treasures are still waiting.